Minions and Monsters is the best Minions movie and was a really good movie. Let me explain. Now, when I heard the concept for this and how it was being described by the filmmakers, I genuinely laughed out loud, but I am happy to say that I was wrong for doubting it. The amount of references to old figures in Hollywood like Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin, and then just the filmmaking practices of the time, make the movie feel so immersive. Like you're literally walking around in the 1920s. The settings are bright and beautiful. The characters are very well designed and the animation overall is just stunning. I've never exactly looked at one of these Minions or Despicable Me movies and said, wow, that looks unbelievably good. But man, Illumination and its animators were on one when making this one. I also thought the voice cast was incredible. Obviously, the Minions sound like the Minions always do, but the new cast members like Allison Janney and Jesse Eisenberg were great additions, especially Eisenberg. His character Dorrit is really entertaining. He's just casually a robot walking around the streets of LA. No explanation really, just a robot. The storyline that they give him and the minions that end up following him is so bizarre and random, but it works so well because of the nature of this franchise, which is in and of itself bizarre and random. But speaking of the minions themselves, this is probably the most time we spend around them across all three films without humans, and as a result, it's the most we get to hear their language, and I feel like I was starting to understand what they were saying by the end of this movie. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's definitely a thing. I also really enjoyed how quickly this film moves. There are some structure issues with it that I'll talk about shortly, but for the most part, I felt like the runtime flew by, and a lot of that was just a result of how much I was enjoying myself. Until I actually thought about it, I didn't realize how much of this movie I was just smiling through, and it makes me feel weird because it's a Minions movie. These tiny yellow things that eat bananas. Like, I can't stress enough how weird it is to see them in a period piece becoming filmmakers. As for the pacing I was talking about, some will probably say that it moved too quickly, but for me, we're dealing with objectively obnoxious creatures that don't speak English. I'm not sure that anyone could sit through a pace any slower than this. One other thing I really noticed about the movie is how strong its musical score is. It adds so much to each scene and is easily the best of the franchise, and that's no surprise at all given the fact they managed to grab John Powell to compose it, one of the greatest musical geniuses working today. But wrapping up the positive, this is just a delight of a film that is childish enough to entertain the kids, but randomly has enough references to keep even the most die-hard adult cinephile engaged. Moving into the negatives, the big thing for me is the structure issue I mentioned earlier. This movie is essentially split into two halves, with the first half being the Minions being introduced to Hollywood and their rise to fame, and the second half being their quest to make their movie. For me, the first half was wildly more entertaining. It just felt so tightly written with so many jokes that landed and a plot that felt like it moved at a healthy rate. But then once the second half turn comes, it feels like we're stuck between two gears on a car because the movie is both moving at a more rapid pace and a slower one. What I mean by that is that the first half felt like it was fueled by character momentum and actual story beats. And it's not that the second half doesn't have those things, but it flies through them so fast that you barely even get to digest them before you're on to the next. What happens because of that is none of them end up resonating, and it leads to a third act that, while extremely entertaining, I'll give it that, doesn't feel very earned. The main difference between the two halves is that the second half is where we're introduced to the monsters of the movie, which, as one of the two words in the title, it's weird to only meet them halfway through, but nonetheless, the monsters themselves aren't bad characters. I feel like there are some good things hidden down in them somewhere, but the movie doesn't give nearly enough time to explore them. It's only 90 minutes long, so when the monsters don't come in until between the 45-minute and 1-hour mark, you can only fit so much character development and set up into those few minutes before you have to move into your finale. I don't think it was bad or anything, but the monsters just felt very flat and underdeveloped, especially when they're sharing the screens with these minions who had the entire first half of the movie dedicated to setting up their character arcs. My only other negative is that this is a Minions movie, so there's obviously going to be about one too many fart and butt jokes, but I don't even know if that's a valid criticism at this point. If you buy a ticket to a Minions movie, you kind of know what you're getting yourself into. But overall, those are essentially my only complaints because this is just a delight of a movie. I'm still so surprised at how they managed to pull this concept off in a way that didn't feel extremely tacky. It's such a weird blend of characters and settings that work in ways I couldn't have imagined. Because of that entertaining concept and the likable side characters we were introduced to, I thoroughly enjoyed the film. My final score for Minions and Monsters is a 7 out of 10. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think of Minions and Monsters in the comments down below. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want more movie reviews. And stay tuned for my Disney ranking, I'm still editing it. But anyways, I will see you guys later.